Galante with TecHome Builder. I'm here for our 60-second take on track highlights with our multifamily track chair, Brandon Savage. Brandon, what do you got lined up for us this year? 60 seconds or less.
Okay. Well, we're going to try to tackle some of the latest and breaking technology challenges in the multifamily industry. We'll be talking about health and wellness as we're still coming out of the pandemic and then potentially having a new pandemic around the corner. We've got tech investments, financial analysis, looking at how we quantify the ROI on our investments. We'll be doing some of the regular in-unit trends, what's the latest and greatest when we're looking at within housing and the technology used both in apartments and then also in our shared spaces and what we can do there. And we'll wrap up by looking at managed connectivity and audio-visual.
What do you feel like the key takeaways are going to be from this year's program?
Well, I think that there's, in housing in general, there's certainly some trends associated as we're coming out with a pandemic having to do with where are people going to work? Are they going into the office or are they going to stay home? And we've seen recently with announcements by Facebook and Amazon and Microsoft to stop construction on some of their larger projects, both in New York and Seattle. I think we're going to see a kind of a ripple through both tech industry and other industries to still try to figure out what is the new equilibrium going to be when it comes to working at home and working remotely.
Which session are you personally most excited about, Brandon?
It's
hard to pick. They're all such winners.
I think I definitely gravitate towards both what's happening in the actual unit and the trends there, and also in the shared spaces. I think particularly when we see new buildings, they really try to set themselves apart with what they're doing in their shared spaces. And we've got a great opportunity this year in Phoenix. We've got a partner in Akara Partners who's going to let us see one of their brand new units. It's just a couple blocks away from the convention center. And I think it's going to be exciting to see how they've really re-envisioned what these living spaces and play spaces can be.
Yeah, what do you think's going on in units? I mean, we kind of settled into this pretty standard smart apartment package with keyless locks, communicating thermostat, maybe a little bit of lighting control. What's the next circle of value that is going to be offered out there to differentiate apartments?
Yeah, I think it's going to be in the health and wellness. I think particularly as we're being more educated and more concerned about ventilation, both in where we live, particularly if we're in dense areas around other people, and also in our shared areas. I think that's something that a lot of the up and coming apartment renters are going to be asking questions about.
What about on the AV side of things? Do you see us doing more built-in AV as a differentiator in some of these smart apartments?
Yeah, we're seeing it already. We're seeing where people don't necessarily want to bring their entire audio-visual stack with them, their TV, their speakers, and that, hey, if it can already be there, or you have a menu option that I can pay a certain amount a month to basically have this type of setup and all of the other infrastructure is there in the apartment, that's really attractive to people.
What about shade control? I mean, it just strikes me that that's kind of a no-brainer, and there's light and there's natural light control, right? They kind of go hand in glove. I mean, do you see that starting to happen in a bigger way? Do we have cost-effective solutions?
Yeah, I think there are more cost-effective solutions out there now. We're starting to see it move from kind of the luxury down the stack into more accessible units. And the combination of trying to find the right light and balance and automating that and how that also ties into your HVAC and keeping your unit warm or cold and using the ideal amount of energy as possible, obviously the lowest amount of energy possible. Those are all in play.
And do you think healthy lighting, which goes by lots of different names like circadian rhythm, natural lighting, but is that going to start to make its way into the multifamily in unit space, do you think?
Well, I think with both the reduction of the cost in LED lighting and the increased versatility of how it can be controlled by computers, both in the color, the lighting, the intensity, we've seen that being used as accents in shared spaces. But I think we are starting to see that move into the actual living spaces to try to help accomplish some of those goals with creating that circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
and making it a great livable environment for residents.
Do you see your sessions diving into process areas like beyond the products and the applications? How do we effectively sell and market these tech forward features we put in the apartments? How do we actually partner with the trades that can help us do a good job in terms of designing this in and installing the systems, supporting the residents in terms of their experience with the technology? Is that going to be part of the flow?
Yeah, I think particularly in our financial analysis session, the technology is great, but it's got to make sense from a dollars and cents point of view.
Yeah.
So it's, can we get more people to come? Can we raise the rent because we're adding more value? Can we reduce churn and turnover as a result of making our units more attractive than others? And so we'll talk about some of the processes to be able to be gathering that information, quantifying that information, so that you feel confident as you're making a decision to invest in technology that it's going to make sense on the other end and make both.
You've got a session where we're not just going to be talking about that stuff conceptually. We're going to actually show numbers and how models can be built, and you can look at the payback on investments in various technologies, both in terms of additional revenue generation and operating expense saving, et cetera, right?
That's correct.
All right.